Hi everyone, I'm Abby from Drop Biohealth, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's event on Are Your Emotions Making You Sick? Emotions aren't just in your mind, they quite often physically manifest within the body. Today we'll learn just how emotions can impact your health and the daily functions of your body, along with techniques to tap into your nervous system's natural calming mechanisms to regain your equilibrium. And if you want to discover the impact that stress and other lifestyle factors might be having on your body, you'll want to know about well-being, our at-home finger prick blood test, which I'd love to give you an exclusive quick peek into today. After you make a purchase, you'll complete a lifestyle habits survey and we'll send you your home finger prick test kit. Once you've returned your sample, we'll analyze it in our accredited laboratory and provide the test results to your online dashboard. Your results include your blood test and lifestyle scores for each of our 7 health categories, as well as a set of next steps you may want to take to improve each health category. A single test can be valuable in understanding where you might want to make improvements to your lifestyle, but when you take the tests over time, you get a much better understanding of how your body is responding to your lifestyle habits. This page shows you how your scores are changing over time and might highlight what areas of your lifestyle that you should focus on based on trends over time. For instance, your stress levels may have gotten worse since your last test, and this may show up in the changes to your blood test scores. When you're able to see how your habits are impacting your health, you can make more informed and better lifestyle decisions to maintain good health over the long term. So that's a very quick peek. And if you have any questions about wellbeing, please let us know in the comments or email info@dropbio.com and we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And as an added bonus, if you sign up for Wellbeing today, you'll also get a free set of weekly Wellness for You health and wellbeing cards from our speaker today, Dr. Aimee Brown, valued at $39 free when you use promo code Aimee to redeem. Created by Aimee, these cards are designed to give you a simple health focus point for each week. One thing to focus on or find time for, it's that simple. Now, let's meet today's guest. So today's guest is Dr. Aimee Brown. Aimee is a holistic chiropractor of 12 years, a personal trainer, an ultramarathon runner, and mother of 3 who's passionate about the mind-body connection. Her multidisciplinary approach to treatment looks at all aspects of well-being, from diet and lifestyle to mindset, sleep, and exercise. Welcome, Aimee. Can we start off by getting your thoughts on why it's so important to consider our emotions when thinking about our physical health?
I think just so many people are becoming more aware of this, that it's something that is so huge in our lives and our worlds that we can't stop emotions, and we don't want to stop them. Like, it's a part of life and part of being human, but we're starting to realize how much they do impact us physically, and also in often a negative way. So being able to control that and impact that and lessen the effect is really important.
Great, thank you. And we can't wait to dive into that a little more very shortly. So in terms of a bit of housekeeping, we have a few questions that our community have put forward earlier this week for Aimee to answer. But if you have any questions that come up for you throughout today's talk, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen to submit those questions. And I'm going to ask Aimee those in a little while after her talk. And you can choose whether or not those submissions are anonymous also. The chat box is also open for chatting throughout the event, which we really encourage. However, don't put your questions in there. We may miss them. Use that Q&A box. But for now, I'm going to hand over to you, Aimee. Let's hear all about Are Your Emotions Making You Sick? Thank you, Dr. Aimee Brown.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen up here. Perfect. So, move this down. Beautiful. So, how are your emotions impacting you and potentially making you sick? So, sorry, that is not one. Perfect. So, this is a few things that I'm going to sort of go through and cover today, is how emotions and stress sort of physically do impact our bodies on an everyday basis, ways to recognize when that is occurring, what to look for, and key things that you can do to understand how it's impacting you. And then, of course, what we all want to know is tips on decreasing the impact that it has on our bodies. And we use our nervous system to do that. So what we're going to start with is, how do our emotions actually affect us physically? And every time that you have a thought, a feeling, a stress, or an emotion, your body physiologically responds and changes. And as I said before, that's a normal process. We don't want to stop that from occurring, but we want it to stop having a negative impact on us. And I think it's really important to point out that there's no such thing as a sort of a good or a bad emotion or a stress. That it just is what it is, but the impact that it can have on our bodies and the way that it's functioning can be classed as negative. So it's not necessarily a negative emotion, but the impact on it can sometimes have that negative effect on the way that we're functioning. So emotions occur in our subconscious brain. Now, I am going to get a little bit sciencey for the first little bit. I promise to keep it nice and simple, but you do kind of need to understand the nervous system a little bit to work out how it works. So emotions are in our subconscious brain. So we have two parts, a conscious and a subconscious. Your conscious brain, surprisingly to some people, only makes up about 10% of your brain function, really. So your conscious brain is your analytical side, it's your logical side, it thinks, it plans, all of those sorts of processes, and you are in control of it. And it recognizes what's going on internally, mentally, and also externally in your environment. And then we have the subconscious, which is where your emotions are, and they occur, and that's 90% of your brain function. So it's quite a lot. It's a high portion of what's actually going on in your body. And this is your emotions, your feelings, your habits, that sort of intuition or gut feeling, those sorts of occurrences, creativity, that line is all in that subconscious brain. The other part that's really important in your subconscious brain is a lot of your bodily functions. So when you're thinking about it, you might be sitting there now and you might be breathing, your heart is beating, you might be digesting some of your breakfast or your lunch or whatever it is that you have, depending on your time zone that you're in. And you're not consciously making that happen. Your body is just naturally doing that itself. So that's all part of that subconscious brain. And that's part of what we call your autonomic nervous system. Okay, so your subconscious brain controls your autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for all those functions. So you have your emotions, and then you have your, sorry, I've just had something pop up on my screen. Beautiful. You have your emotions, you have your subconscious brain, and then you have your autonomic nervous system, which controls a lot of different things. Now, it's also important to remember that your subconscious brain remembers all the things that have happened in the past, which is why you can often get a physical triggering from something that's happened in the past. For example, you might have been bitten by a dog when you were a younger child, and then you might, even as an adult, see a dog that looks similar and have a physical response or a fear response to that. Now, that is because your subconscious remembers all of those sort of long-term memory things. Okay, so hope you're all with me so far, and I do talk fast, so apologies. Questions are always welcome at the end. Where has my thing gone? Beautiful. So this is our sciencey bit. I've got my little diagram to help me here. So to understand, as I said, how you can use your nervous system to regulate stress, you need to understand your nervous system a little bit. Okay. Now, your nervous system is hugely in detail, so I've got the basics here. So we have two main parts. We have your central nervous system, which is basically your brain and your spinal cord. And that's sort of that central computer, central processing part. Your second part is what we call your peripheral nervous system. That's all your nerves that come out of your spinal cord, your cranial nerves, peripheral nerves, and it's basically how those messages get back up to that processing computer that we have up there. And then we have two parts of that peripheral nervous system. It just breaks down two parts the whole way through. So the autonomic nervous system is the bit that I spoke about a bit before. So I'm going to start with the somatic nervous system. And this is the bit where it sends all of the information to and from, but it's under conscious control. So we consciously are doing things. Like right now, I talk with my hands a lot. I am consciously moving my hand, moving my feet, moving my legs. It's a conscious thing that I'm doing, and it's both sensory and motor. So that's that somatic side of things, and the messages going back up and down. And then, as I said, we have the autonomic side, and this is the involuntary bit. This is the bit that just sort of happens. We have our breathing, we have your heart rate, we have a lot of hormone secretion that goes on, bile secretion, all of these processes, as I said, that just occur without us even being aware of it. Yeah. And then this sort of then breaks down again into two more sections. And this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time chatting today, is both in your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is the bit that sort of flares up when you are in sort of a heightened emotional or a stress state. So I remember it with sympathetic is S, stress is S. So that's when that system is going to sort of flare up, okay? And it's what we used to call fight and flight. We now often call it fight, flight, and freeze. So these are the responses of your body when you're under stress or under threat, okay? And then we have your parasympathetic system, which is the rest and digest. That's when we're just in a cool, calm, collected state. We're just going about our daily lives, nothing too stressful, not too many emotions going on, nothing firing us up. And it really is, it's when you're going to have those good sleeps and you're going to eat really well, your food is going to get digested, and all your blood flow and your body's energy is focused on all of those everyday sort of running systems, okay? Now, this is all meant to work in harmony and balance. We can think of it sometimes as a highway. We want all the lanes, everything, all the traffic flowing up and down nicely. We don't want to have a stuck traffic jam which backlogs everything else and nothing works. So it's all meant to be nice and free flowing and balance in and out of that. Now, what happens when we have heightened emotions or more stress, and I do sort of use those two terms interchangeably, so bear with me. But when you are in a stressful state or high emotional state, you're going to go more into that sympathetic state in your nervous system. And this is good. We want this. This is a natural, normal response. It is what your body's meant to do. It is so-called running away from those figurative tigers, okay? And so your body is going to send a lot of your blood flow out to your muscles so that you can physically run. It's going to slow down your digestive processes. It might dilate your pupils so you can get lots of light in. It's going to speed up your heart rate. It's going to open up your airways. It's going to do all of these things so that you can basically run and you can go. Yeah. And as I said, that's what you want. But what we don't want is to be in that for a sustained amount of time. What we want is to come back into that parasympathetic state. We want to come back down into that rest and digest. We want all those blood flow and your body's energy to be able to focus back on bringing your heart rate back down, getting your digestive processes, bringing your eyes back down to normal, getting all those hormones going in the way that they should be, again, for that everyday functioning. And what happens is when we're in a constant state of stress, we stay in that sympathetic system, and that's where we get into trouble a little bit. Okay, so this is where stress can show up in so many different ways and impact us on such a physical level. Now, most people know that you might get a tension headache, you might get some neck pain, you might get some tight shoulders, your upper back's going to get tight when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, a bit stressed, maybe a bit angry, even a bit sad. You know, your butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous. Irritable bowel symptoms is a really big one that can impact people in high stress states. A lot of people subconsciously will clench their jaw and their teeth when there's stuff going on for them emotionally, which can create jaw pain, teeth pain, upper neck pain as well. So these are all sort of the physical things that people are more aware of, that because they can physically feel or see, or they have an impact on their life to an extent on a daily basis. And people are becoming more and more aware that there may be an emotional link between this. But it's often the ones that go on with the organs and the systems that are under control of that autonomic nervous system that you don't necessarily see or feel, that can then lead to having a bigger impact to your health later on. So, for example, if you're in a constant state of stress or high emotions, and that can be sadness, it can grief, it doesn't have to be anger or anything like that. It's just a heightened emotional or stress state. Your blood pressure might suddenly come up and stay up. Your heart rate potentially is going to increase and stay up. Anxiety is a huge one for a lot of people. When you're in that constant state, anxiety will often either occur or can be seen to get worse. Panic attacks can start to occur as well. Chest tightness, which is often associated with the panic attacks and the anxiety. Insomnia, so not sleeping well, is huge as well when it comes to the impact of stress on the body. And then things like stomach ulcers can have a big impact. It can be stress that causes those sorts of things. This morning, I was literally driving to work, and on the radio happened to be a biochemist or an immunologist. I can't quite remember what she was, but she was talking about the impact of stress and then the impact that has on your immune function as well. So just if you're stressed, are you going to just get a cold and a flu more often as well? So quite often we're aware, as I said, of the physical things that we can feel and our tightness and those sorts of areas, but it's those everyday functions going on underneath that we're not necessarily aware of. Our hormone levels as a female, our periods and our cycles can be really impacted with stress as well. So it's also important, I do like to point out here as well, that when we have that sort of physical side, like if you're at your desk and you're stressed, if you've got your shoulders, I apologize if you can hear that. There's renovations going on next door. I did ask them to be quiet, so apologies if you can hear that. I'm not sure if you can. But if you've got that sort of hunched posture at your desk, if you're sitting there like this, or if you're going through a big grief period, you might find yourself quite hunched over and tight. You then can't, when you're hunched and tight, you're not getting a full deep breath. So you're not oxygenating your body properly. You're compressing some of your organs with that poor posture as well, your stomach, your digestion, all of those sorts of things will be impacted. And so you then as well, if you're sitting at your desk, you've got those things going on, you're tired, you're not stretching, you're not moving, you're more likely to reach for the cup of coffee, you're more likely to not necessarily eat the best foods. That's going to then impact everything else. Your energy is going to be low, you might not exercise, you might not sleep well, and it's just this big cycle. So things will often build up on top of each other. It might not be one thing, but it's that never-ending circle that sort of occurs, okay? And I do also just want to point out that, as I said before, your body doesn't know the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat to put you into this stress state. So your subconscious doesn't understand whether you're actually physically sitting in that really scary meeting with the big boss and you're worried you're going to get fired, or whether you are just thinking about it. So that's where the thought processes become really important, because you need to not be thinking about that, essentially trying to shut your brain off from thinking about the stress or the stresses in your life, because your body doesn't recognize whether you're there or not. So it's still going to be putting you into that stress state. And most people are aware of that to an extent, because, you know, when you just think about something, know what's real and what's not in terms of this. So it's just something to really think about, is trying to sort of, it's why a lot of people talk about putting things in boxes to an extent. So boxing up that emotion and boxing up that thing. It doesn't mean we don't want you to think and feel and process it. But when we can have processed it, move on from there to stop that impact on your body. Okay. So importantly, how do we start to recognize that these things are actually manifesting and impacting on us? And there's three main areas of stress that will impact your body. Three main sort of categories: your physical stress, your emotional stress, and your chemical / nutritional stress. Now, most people know about the physical stresses. So biggest ones is prolonged sitting, not moving, poor sleep is definitely one of those physical things, even just lifting things that you're not meant to as well. What else did I say? Yes, poor sleep posture. So sleeping in a bad position, poor posture at work. This is sort of your physical stresses that occur to your body. Your chemical and nutritional stresses are what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, what is surrounding you, also what you're not doing as well. So are you drinking enough water? Are you not drinking enough water? Is that having a stress on your body as well? Dehydration is a big one for a lot of people. And a reminder that what is a stress to you and your body is not necessarily a stress to someone else's. So for example, I am very sensitive to lavender. Randomly, I know it's a natural thing that occurs, but quite sensitive to it, and it will just flare me up, give me sort of an instant headache. I won't feel amazing. That is an example of a chemical stress to my body, which might be absolutely fine for someone else. And that goes in the line of emotions as well. So what triggers me off emotionally and what flares me up and sends me into a bit of a state might be completely different to you. Now, that doesn't diminish either feelings or either emotion. It's purely just the way that you are in your state and what you perceive. So don't ever, people often say to me, oh, but it's not as bad as someone else, or it's not as bad as this. People have it worse and I shouldn't be worried. That's not true. Like, yes, it is amazing to be aware of other people and other things going on in the world, but what is the biggest stress and emotion for you, or what is putting you into that emotional state? If that's the biggest thing, what's going on in your life and your world, then that's what it is. And we need to not diminish that either, because as I said, it's still going to be having that impact on your body. Now, one thing with this to remember as well that I like to point out is your body can only deal with so much. Your body can only deal with so much. So if you are physically doing amazing and you're doing all the things, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're drinking water, doing all of those things, then you deal with the emotional stress a bit better. Yeah, so it won't have as much impact. Your nervous system can adapt to that better, to that stress. However, if you are not sleeping, you're not eating well, you're not moving your body at all, you're not aware of your posture, your whole body and nervous system is not functioning well. And then if you throw on an emotional flare up on top of that, or you throw on some emotional stress on top of that, your body's not going to adapt as well as what it naturally could or would if it wasn't in that poor physical state. So it all interacts, and sometimes it simply comes down to the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what sets off that cycle of illness or sickness. So keeping in mind, do your symptoms get worse at a period of high stress? So if you can think about something, maybe you're thinking about your headaches, maybe you're thinking about your knee pain, your back pain, your digestive issues, do they get worse at a period of high stress? And I said it can be any of those stresses that we've just spoken about. Or do you suffer from an issue or a condition that can't be put down to anything else? Like, have you had all the blood tests? Have you had all the scans? Have you had all the tests? Have you seen every practitioner and no one can work out what is causing this particular thing? Okay. Sometimes then we need to look at it as stress or heightened emotions may be having an impact on that. Okay. And now sometimes it's not necessarily that it's 100% causing it, but as I said, maybe it's just making it worse or making your body not be able to deal and adapt and move out of that state as well as what it would have liked to. Now, this sort of falls in the same thing, is does it get better or worse with no real sort of reason? Like, does your headache come on without really physically doing anything? Does your digestive issues get worse without changing your diet? Did your irritable bowel go from flaring up once a week to maybe now it's constant? Maybe that means you're in a constant state of stress, okay? And that's when we look at, could stress and emotions be impacting it? And I always encourage my clients to just take a step back and think about it, because quite often it's not something that you're asked when you're sort of with a practitioner, or whether you're just debriefing yourself or your friends or whatever it is. It's quite often just like, okay, well, has your food changed? Has your sleep changed? Has your desk changed? Has your bed changed? Has this? Have you fallen over? A lot of the time, it's just not a question that is asked. So I just encourage you to think about it and think about when maybe those symptoms or things have been occurring. Has it been a period of heightened emotions or heightened stress that could be having an impact on it, basically? Okay. So And that's what I was saying before. I like to just remind ourselves of that. Your brain doesn't understand the difference between a real threat or a perceived threat. So thinking of something, your body is going to react the same way as actually happening. But the positive thing with that is that when we go into how to sort of work and fix this, which is very soon, I promise, that plays a role in a really positive way. So it's not necessarily a negative thing. So as I said, what can we do when we're in this state, when you know your stress and emotion impacting you? It all comes down to regulating and using that part of the nervous system, so that autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, and working with that to decrease that, get that back into balance, which decreases the impact on the body from there. So one of the biggest things that we work on with this is called your vagus nerve, which is one of your cranial nerves. And it is basically your longest and lightest cranial nerve, and it has so many different functions across the board, and it works with the parasympathetic control of a lot of organs, heart rate, breathing, digestion, just to name a few. So what we really want to do is have what we call strong vagal tone, okay, which basically means we want that nerve to be functioning really well, so that then when we do get hit with a stress, or we do get hit with a whole heap of emotions all at once, because that's how it tends to happen, right? It's never one, it's always overloaded. What we want is we want that to be a really good tone, really well, so we can adapt to that stress, so that things don't have as much of an impact. So yeah, simple, right? So let's go through. I'm going to go through with you now basically how to stimulate and activate your parasympathetic nervous system, because that is what we do and we work on to decrease the impact of stress, get you back into that parasympathetic state, which is where your body is going to function the best. And what I like to do is I'm all about simple things that you can do and that you can do on a daily basis. You might have some that you might use at home, some that you might use at work, different things for different times. So I'm just going to throw a few at you and see how you go. See if you can find something that might fit into your life. So one of the top ones that I always recommend is breathing techniques. And I recommend this because it is just quick, easy, simple, free. You can do it anywhere, and it's very, very hard to do wrong. Because a lot of people, when we're trying to do something to decrease our stress or decrease the effect of our emotions on our body, we get so caught up in the processes behind doing things that we end up not doing anything. Okay, we've all been there, we've all done that. We've gone to an appointment, we've been given a list of homework, and we just can't even get our head around how to do it. So breathing is really simple. You can't do it wrong. It is a form of meditation. So for those people that find it hard to meditate or can't meditate, you just need to stop and breathe. Okay, slow and deep. Breathe in, hold, and then breathe out. Breathe out for longer than you're breathing in. I always say, set a timer on your phone. So start with 1 or 2 minutes with the aim of working it up to about 10, because then you can literally close your eyes and breathe. You don't have to worry about how long you've been doing it for, because your time is going to go off as long as you've got that set. And then you can literally just sit and focus on your breathing. And I promise, if you have not done this before or done it regularly, a minute feels like forever, and you just feel like a new person afterwards, even if it's only a minute. So your whole body can nice and calm and relax. So just remember, you can't do it wrong. Doing it before you walk into the office in the car, or sitting in the car before you pick up the kids, is really fabulous as well, before you go to sleep, to calm down your nervous system for a better night's sleep. Water is one of my other favorites. So I'm a big one for drinking water and getting that into your body, but it works really, really well for activating and getting into parasympathetic nervous system. It's been shown to decrease your fight and flight response, so bring you back into that parasympathetics. Now, they say jumping into a cold shower or cold water is ideal. That's what we want to do. However, we can't necessarily do that all the time. So even just to splash some water on your face, put a cold wet on the back of your neck or the upper top of your neck, that sort of area. A spray bottle works well. Drinking water, putting some water in your hands, those sorts of things are really great ways to just sort of calm down that nervous system and sort of create a change and break the cycle that you're in. And speaking of that, getting out into nature. So fresh air and sunshine, everyone knows it, vitamin D, fresh air, nothing beats it. And it's a great way to de-stress. So even if you can go outside, get into nature and just do your breathing out there is amazing. Even better, get barefoot when you're outside. Now, I know this is not always possible sort of during the day, especially if we're at work and things like that, but there's a lot of research coming out about sort of what they call grounding, which is getting barefoot into nature. And they do say 20 to 30 minutes a day to sort of have the benefits of decreasing stress. But as I say, anything is always going to be better than nothing, right? So if you can get barefoot, close your eyes, get some sunshine, get some fresh air, and close your eyes and do breathing while you're there, you are doing absolutely amazing. And again, these are things that really don't cost money, and they're not overly time consuming. So they're things that you can do anywhere, wherever you are around the world, and fit it into your day, even if it is, as I said, literally on your lunch break at work. Get outside, get some sunshine on you for 5 minutes, walk around, move your body and drink some water. Can make a massive difference to decreasing the stress and taking, a lot of time it's just taking it out of that environment as well. So getting out, getting away from what it is that's triggering the emotions or the stress. And like I just said, exercise. So when you get up and move your body, have a drink of water for a second. We all know happy hormones, happy endorphins that get your body going, and movement does that. So really important to get your body moving and doing it in a way that is right for you. So say I run ultra marathons, we'll talk a bit about that in a second, but you don't have to do that. And I don't necessarily recommend it because it does put your body into quite a stressful state. But if swimming's your thing, swim. Do something that works for you. If you are in a stressed state, if you know you've got some stress going on, sometimes we don't want to be doing high intensity exercise. So yoga, Pilates, gentle stretching, going for a walk by the river, those things can be really good just to be kind and gentle to your body, but also get it moving and get those happy hormones going. And again, when we're looking, as I spoke before, about posture and things like that, having an impact on us as well. If you are sad or stressed or stuck at your desk, just simply shoulder rubs are great. We'll talk about that in a second. Shoulder rolls, stretching from your head from side to side. That is a great way just to get some movement into your day while you're sitting at your desk. Playing music is one of my faves because it just changes your state and your mood so quickly. And you really just want to put on some music that makes you happy and makes your heart sing. Just start to sing. Humming can also stimulate that vagus nerve that we were talking about, because the vagus nerve innervates all of those areas. So humming can help, singing can help. And it's an amazing way to, as I said, change your state. I use this one a lot on my way to work or home from work. So I do have 3 kids, and mornings can be quite hectic. Work can be quite hectic sometimes. So if I've had a hectic morning with the kids, I will have this certain playlist of, I think I've got 5 or 6 songs on it at the moment. Pump that on in my car, sing like a crazy woman, have everyone next to me in the traffic laughing at me going, what is she doing? But it's just such an amazing way to get those positive, happy hormones going, get the endorphins going, and change that state. And same thing if I've had a bad day at work, which honestly is not very often. But if I need to change that state, then I use that playlist for that as well. So it's just something I encourage people to do. And you can also do that most of the time with headphones and things like that. You can chuck music in and listen to it, and it's just a great way and an easy way to sort of bring that down. Okay, now practicing gratitude is, most people are aware of this one. It's just simply getting into that positive state of mind. And it can literally just be saying a couple of things that you're grateful for each day when you wake up, 1 or 2 things at night before you go to sleep. You don't have to write them down. You don't have to journal. You can just say them, and speaking them often has a better benefit as well. So, and along with that, this is the one that I was talking about earlier, that your brain and your body don't know the difference between what is real and perceived in terms of that subconscious and the stress and how it impacts your body. So just as much as that can have a negative impact as what I was talking about before, that it doesn't know whether you're actually in that meeting or just thinking of being in that meeting, you can also, your brain doesn't know whether you are actually sitting on a beach on a private island with a cocktail or whether you are just closing your eyes and thinking about it. So it's pretty cool in that sense. So one really good way to just decrease that stress again and decrease that nervous system and bring it back into that parasympathetic, take 5, close your eyes, picture yourself in your happy place, whether that is on the beach, whether it's out in nature, whether it's running around the park with the kids, whatever that is for you and wherever your happy place is, close your eyes and think about that. And I do challenge anybody to close your eyes, 5 or 10 minutes, set your timer, picture yourself in that happy place, do some breathing, even better, do it outside in the sunshine, but even if you're not, do it for 5 or 10 minutes. And what I see and what I have experienced with people that I get to do this is most people, like literally at the end of 5 minutes, they're like, whoa, their whole body just feels different. And if you physically feel different in the way that you feel, then what that means is all those internal organs and all that internal hormonal function and everything else is going to be functioning better as well. So I challenge you to do that if you haven't tried that before. Laughing, put a silly video on, have a laugh with friends, find something funny, great way again to change your state, and with that vagus nerve and the innervation of that. So just laugh, get those happy hormones going. And as I said before, when I was talking about shoulder rubs, when I was talking about shoulder rolls instead of rubs, have a massage. It's a great way to de-stress your body. And there's also research that I was reading the other day, which, as always, we need more research, but they're indicating that if they actually worked on the suboccipital muscles, which are the ones right up the very top of our neck, which where people often go, that's really tight and sore and not great, may actually decrease the stress levels in your body. So there was a study that it was only small, but they measured the stress levels in the body. They then did some suboccipital release up the top, and then they remeasured, and the levels in the body had actually come down. So we definitely need more research, but it's just, of course, even just to get in and release up there or do a bit of a massage, amazing to decrease the stress levels in your body, which again is just that indicator that your whole body's functioning better if those stress levels are down. So you're less likely to have all the other illnesses and sicknesses that might be related to the stress. And of course, I'm going to finish off with saying, see a chiropractor. If you don't see one already. And if you are interested in seeing one, always reach out. I can find someone close to you who is amazing. But our whole job and our whole aim is to work with your nervous system, get it functioning the best that it can. And the better that your nervous system is functioning, the better it's going to adapt to the stress or the emotions, which means they're going to have a lesser impact. Because as I said at the start, your stress and emotions are normal and real. It's always going to happen. But what we want to do is be able to come sort of up into that stress and down without having such a massive impact on your body, and not sort of staying in that stress state that it has that much of an impact on you. So see your chiropractor. We work really well with the nervous system. So I am just going to finish off with this little bit and sort of sum it all up for you. So I said at the start, I like to run ultra marathons, which essentially is running further than most people like to drive. I'm actually in the middle of doing 3 200-mile events. So that's about 320 to 350 kilometers. I've done 2 this year, got 1 in a few weeks in the Blue Mountains, and goes over days. So we start running on either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm slow, so it ends up being a hike at the end. And we finish on about the Sunday. It's not between 90 and 100 hours basically for me. And with very little sleep, we go day and night. And so we are, I think I range between 2 and 7 hours sleep over that whole phase when I'm doing them. And physically putting your body into a state of stress, mindset, and emotionally putting your body into a state of stress. But you have to be able to deal with the stress and the emotions to be able to get to the end. And if you let your stress and emotions get on top of you in these events, it really does decrease the ability to physically finish. And I have been known to have a few meltdowns on these, which we all do, but in particular, we come into an aid station and they are anywhere between 10Ks to 30Ks. So you sort of restock, refuel, head on out. And when you're going slow, this can be 6 or 8 hours between an aid, and come in absolute blubbering mess. Definitely not smiley like I am in the photos, but you come in absolute mess. One of them, I injured my knee. exhausted, everything hurts, blisters are everywhere. It's just your shoulders are sore from carrying all your gear, your hands are sore from carrying the poles, and you're just absolutely exhausted. And you literally walk in and you might sit down and take your pack off. Someone might rub your shoulders or massage your neck. I'm very lucky that I've had chiropractors coming with me on some of these to help me. So sometimes we'll have an adjustment. I'll drink some water, particularly get water splashed all over us, ice, those sorts of things. Get some really good food in, or at least some good carbs and nutrition and sugar to pick us up and going. Might rub your feet, you sit down, there's normally music blaring. Have a bit of a sing along. You'll have a laugh with the people there about how crazy it is that we do these silly things. And it's all those things that then you literally, in a 10 to 20 minute turnaround, you're good to go again. Like, you are happy, you're smiling, suddenly your feet aren't as sore, your knee pain's not as bad, your blisters, you're not feeling them as much. And you're just like literally go, cool, let's bang this out, let's 20 Ks out. And it's just, it really shows me how much it is these things that I tell people that I've just gone through with you, that they're the things that make the difference when I'm out running an ultramarathon. They're the things that make a difference on a day-to-day basis. It is just doing the simple little things to bring your body back into that sort of parasympathetic control, get it out of the sympathetic, get it out of that stress state, recognizing what it is that puts you into that state, whether it is the kids yelling at each other, trying to get them out the door to school, whether it's someone that you know is sick, whether it's trying to find a new job, whether it's, I don't know, all the little things that tend to stress us out. So it's just a matter of knowing little things, recognizing that they are having an impact on you and they will impact your health, whether you can physically feel it or not, and doing these things to prevent it. And as I said, this is not replacing any other healthcare to deal with this that you may have. This is just simple little things that you may be able to do on top, or just to think about and trigger, and maybe speak to your healthcare practitioners about. So that is my rundown.
Thank you so much, Aimee. Gosh, I love that. It's like ultra marathons are like the most epic kind of example of the mind-body connection and that power. And gosh, I could do a whole event with you just on that, because gosh, it seems kind of superhuman and I'm so intrigued.
Yes.
But we do have some questions that have
Beautiful.
come through. So I'll let you have a quick sip of tea, and I'll remind everybody, this is the Q&A portion of the event. And this is your opportunity to ask Aimee any questions you have around the mind-body connection and your emotions. So please use that Q&A box below to drop them in, and I'm going to ask them out. So I'm going to jump straight in with one that we received early on from Ali, who asked, are different emotions connected to different parts of the body, and or do different illnesses or diseases stem from certain emotions?
Yeah, look, I love this question. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the techniques that I use in the clinic is called neuroemotional technique, and that works with finding out where the emotions are sort of stored and your body's not processing them well, which is all based on Chinese acupuncture meridians and things like that. So they work on the process that maybe, for example, frustration and anger might be held more in your liver. So that's just one example. So in that sense, yes. And most people will find that when they are stressed, there'll be a certain part of their body that will flare up, or that will be become symptomatic in that sense. But that can be different for everybody, and it can change. So a bit of a yes and a bit of a no for that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ali. So May mentioned to us that, yeah, for her, she's had a fear of dogs her whole life, and she doesn't actually remember being bitten or anything close to being hurt during her childhood. So that's a really interesting sort of comment around that as well.
Yeah.
We also had someone ask, who said, we all know that it's not good to hold on to negative emotions, but how can we let them go?
I am a massive fan of feel the feels, give yourself a time frame and move on from it. So as I said, we're human. We need to feel the emotions. And I like to really get into that, really feel. I'm a crier. I cry at everything, good, bad, otherwise. Feel the feels, but then I give myself a time frame for that. So if it's something small, it might be 10 minutes. If it's something large, it might be a week or two, to really just sit and feel it and then go, right, what's the plan? How do I move on from this? How do I get out of this? And you have to consciously want to do that. You have to make that decision to do that. And sometimes it's an easy thing you can do yourself. Sometimes you need help to do that. And there are so many amazing different options for people that can help do that. But yeah, I'm a fan of feel the feels, put a time frame on it, and then sort of make a plan to get around it. And if it doesn't work, go and see someone and speak to someone to help.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And do you think sometimes the fear of feeling a feeling can be worse than feeling the feeling itself, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. And that feeds into what I was saying before about we don't know whether it's real or perceived. We don't know. The worry of it is worse than actually doing it. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and conversely, I really loved when you were talking about how our mind doesn't know if we're physically on a tropical island or if we're there in our mind, because in these uncertain times, it's nice to know you can take a quick free holiday anywhere like that as well.
Wouldn't it
really
be fabulous?
Good to know,
yep.
Wouldn't it be? So Ali has also asked us another question around illnesses. She says, we hear about people being susceptible to certain illnesses more than others, common ones being cold and flu, tonsillitis, gastro. Do these in particular have anything to do with emotions?
Look, I'm going to say that, as I said, like this lady on the radio, quite ironically this morning, she was saying that, yes, there is research that if you're in a heightened period of stress, then it will impact your immune function. And then if that is an area that might be a weakness for you, for example, then yes, you might be more prone to that. Like, for example, I always get tonsillitis. Like, it's just my thing. I got it a lot when I was a kid. Now it doesn't go into full-blown tonsillitis, but my throat will flare up when I'm in a period of stress and things like that. So I kind of am aware of that in my body, that that's somewhere it goes. But again, everybody's body is different. Everybody is going to react differently. There's genetics involved. There's so many other environmental factors.
Sure.
So yeah, so yes and no again. Yeah.
and I see, digestive issues seems to be a really common one. A few people in the chat sort of talking about IBS and sort of really struggling with that thing. So it seems like that would be one of the common examples of that.
Yeah, it's huge. And IBS is such a complicated disease, syndrome, whatever we want to call it. And there's so many areas that can impact, stress being one of them, diet, sleep. It can be impacted in so many ways, which is what makes it tricky. And a lot of the times I do find with clients, a lot of the other factors are looked at first before stress is even taken into consideration for it.
Yeah, and it's great sort of advice from you to kind of really check in on your surroundings, because I guess when we're in that stressed out state, we're not really aware of what's going on and may have not kind of checked in and seen this is what's happening for me at the moment. And I did want to briefly talk about your cards, your wellness cards, because we've put a 20% discount for those into the chat box, and we're also giving a free set of those cards to anyone that purchases wellbeing in the next 48 hours.
Yes.
So these cards, one simple action per day.
Yep, one per week. It's not even
one
per
per
day,
week.
It's per week.
Okay.
So you've got 50 cards in the box. So you have 2 weeks off and you can do the whole year because life happens, right? But it's basically designed to be one thing, and it might be as simple as drinking some more water. It might be trying a new fruit and vegetable. It might be going to bed a bit earlier, whatever it is, just to give you one focus point, one thing to work on, and just take it really back to basics, because that's what it all comes down to. Everything is so overcomplicated, and it's why I stuck with cards as well instead of doing apps and all this stuff. Like, get off the tech, get off that. Like, it's fabulous for things like this, but I think if we can just go back to having that physical thing and that physical reminder, just do one little simple thing for ourselves, and it can make such a difference.
I really, really love that, the simplicity to cut through the overwhelm, and I guess build some healthy habits. You do something for 7 days, it might just continue, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I had another great question come through in regards to parenting. An anonymous attendee asked us, what's the best way to not hide or to explain your stress to your kids when they see it? That got me, that one.
Oh, I was going to say, it gets me too.
I relate.
My kids are 6, 8 and 10, so we're in the grips of a lot of this at the moment. Look, I'm a big one of not necessarily hiding it. I will often cry in front of my kids and things like that. They will come up and give me a hug, a cuddle, and then we just move on, sort of thing. They don't need to know details, I think. Like, they don't need to be stressed with things, but I think it's really important that they see us have emotions and to deal with it. And trust me, I don't always deal with it well when it comes to kids and things like that. But to know, for them to see you make mistakes with how you deal with it as well, and then be able to process it and apologize and things like that. But yeah, it's a big one, and I think there's lots of other people that are probably more versed in this than I am when it comes to kids. But it does come down to the same tactics of those things that I spoke about. I'm a big one of where the kids would just add water. I used to do this when my kids were littler, whether it was go to the beach or go to the backyard, splash in a thing, have some water, have a bath, run under it, like, just to, again, break that, or a bit of a dance party. So you can then see the emotion, but have a tactic in place to sort of get out of that again. So yeah, I don't know if that actually helps.
No, that definitely helps. I'm sure that helps our attendee also. The just add water is one of my parenting hacks as well, and personally as well. It's really good to understand the physical impact on things like the vagal nerve and how that is helping, even though we just know it feels good.
Feels good, yeah, exactly.
Just on the vagus nerve, when we talk about strengthening it, are we talking about strengthening it from a physical perspective, or is it more strengthening? Strengthening,
yeah. Right. So it's more about getting it functioning as good as what it can, and getting functioning in its best state. So
Okay, excellent. We've had another question around a new question actually around diet and whether that can be used to improve the mental state. And in particular, is there anything to avoid or include that could help?
Look, I'm not a nutritionist. However, if your body is in a poor state nutritionally, as I said, it's not going to cope with the stresses as well as what it could and what it should, and it won't adapt to the stresses that it could and it should. So for me, it's not necessarily about avoiding or adding or doing things like that. It's just about putting your body into the best state that it can, and that good nutrition comes down to that. And no one's ever perfect. I'm a big fan of everything in moderation, including moderation. Like, drink the champagne and eat the chocolate cake on your birthday, go for it. But then go back to eating your good fruit and veg and a varied diet. So to me, it's not necessarily that diet can change it or do whatever. It's just about getting your whole body functioning as good as what it can.
Okay, adapt. Awesome. We've had a few questions come through from our community, so I might ask one or two of them before we have to wrap up for today. So I'll just jump onto those quickly. Someone said, do all ages have this strong mind and body connection? Like, for example, the toddler. So sort of, does it change over time, and what's a child's experience versus ours?
It's still going to be the same in terms of your body still functions the same. You still have the same components of your nervous system, which are still controlling those same bodily functions, and it's still going to flare up and down. The difference is that depending on the age as to when we are more in a conscious control versus fully subconscious. So there's research to say, some people say from 5 months you can start to hit into conscious control. Some people say up to 7 or 8 to really get that full conscious control. So it depends, and in essence, sometimes it can be even more important to use some of these tools and techniques when they're younger, because it sets them up for getting used to it. But then body is even more subconscious at that point and less in the conscious. So it's almost impacting them more in some, like, to extrapolate from that. So that's just my take on it. And there might be a neuroscientist out there that would disagree or differ, which I'm always open to. But yeah, in terms of the actual bodily functions and how the nervous system works, absolutely the same across the ages. If everyone's in a healthy state, but yeah, the conscious and the subconscious differs.
So a lot of what we've talked about can be applicable, in a parenting sense, and helping our children check in, regulate, manage their emotions as well. Okay, final question for today, hopefully not too curly. Another one that's come through from the chat today. And thank you everyone for your questions. It's been awesome. We've been asked, is it hard to tell objectively how good our mental health is? Because things can sneak up on us gradually. And aside from going to a psychologist, do you have any ideas on ways that we can just do that check-in with ourselves?
And yeah, 100% things definitely sneak up, which is why it is often that straw that broke the camel's back scenario.
Yep.
And look, yes, it is. Sometimes you just have to literally check in with yourself. And it can literally be on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I feel emotionally today? What are my stress levels like? That sort of stuff. How am I sleeping? Those sorts of things that your stress impacts on. So just checking in with those, asking yourself the questions. There's a thing called heart rate variability, which you can get little machines that measure yourself. A lot of smartwatches can do it as well, which tells you, it gives you an indicator of your stress in your body and how that's functioning. So that's a really good one to try as well. You can get straps or different machines, but yeah, some of the smartwatches and things like that can do that. So heart rate variability and measuring that would probably be a really good one, and seeing how it's physically impacting your body as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where technology can come in and really support here. I know personally, I've started using an app that just helps me log every day, smiley face, not so smiley, kind of where am I sitting? And it is good to objectively look back and kind of see where you're tracking in those more stressful moments.
Yeah,
look,
exactly.
I think that's all we have time for, Aimee, but I want to thank you so much for a really interesting presentation and discussion, and for sharing your knowledge and time with us. I'd like to also offer a really big thanks to all of our wonderful attendees for your time and questions. If we didn't get to your question, we will aim to do so in the coming weeks in our community at dropbiohealth.com and in our Sunday Drop newsletter. If you're interested in getting a better understanding of the impact that stress might be having on your body, and you want to see your current health status, sign up to take our wellbeing test today. And as mentioned, you'll get a free set of wellness cards from Aimee, which are valued at $39. And you'll also receive personalized recommendations to help you become the healthiest version of you. So without further ado, we'll wrap it up there. But thank you again, Aimee. Thanks again for your time, everybody. And we hope you guys all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.